All right, Pre-Cal 10, here is a short video on the difference between relations and functions and one-to-one functions. So, relations. Now, we covered this kind of in very complete detail in the workbook and the full video, but this is just a quick one. A relation is any ordered pair or graphical representation of anything in a two-dimensional grid that contains an x and a y, because it is literally a relationship between where you exist in space along the x-axis and the y-axis. So anything you could draw on a two-dimensional grid counts as a relation, but not everything that is a relation graduates to the next set of classifications called a function. Now, a relation doesn't have to pass any tests. A circle is a relation. A bunch of points on a grid is a relation. Anything on that grid is a relation. I used the example in class, and I'll sort of put it here again. The most broad classification to think about here is all students at Vic High. Okay, it means every student in the school is a student at Vic High. But there are certain things that preclude them into different groups. So if you are in grade 10, yes, you are a student at Vic High, but you are more specific to being a grade 10 student in Vic High. And you're going to see how we jump from there after. So relations are anything you can graph. Now, to become a function, we specify how you exist. So in a function, for every one input, which means for every x value, there is one output. So you can see that no matter where I've picked on my x value here, I have a specific y value output in this graph. Now, sure, I have the same y value for a couple different x values, but it doesn't matter. For every individual x value, I have an individual y value. And what this does is this passes what's called the vertical line test. No matter where I draw a vertical line through this graph, I only cross it once. That is what makes it a function. That is how you graduate from a relation here. This does not pass the vertical line test, right? I cross here and here to what's called a function. So it makes you a little bit more specific. We jump from a function to what's called a one-to-one function. Now you can see here every x value does give me an individual y value, but in this case there's no repeated y values. Every y value also has one specific x value. So in order for this to be a function, obviously it has already passed the vertical line test because it is a function. But in order to get that step of extra specificity, it needs to also pass what's called the horizontal line test. So I can draw a horizontal line test through it or a vertical line test through it, and I will only ever hit the graph once. That makes you a one-to-one function. So here's that specificity I was talking about, and you could look at this with the Vic High example. Every student in the school is a Vic High student, but this is specifically grade 10. And then what makes you a one-to-one function? Well, okay, let's make this is say grade 10 and 11 students, and then a one-to-one function is just grade 10. So you can see you narrow the specificity. Every student is a Vic High student, but only a certain amount of those Vic High students are grade 10 and 11, and only a certain amount of those are grade 10. Every grade 10 student is still a Vic High student. Every one-to-one function is still a relation, but not every Vic High student is a grade 10 student. So not every relation is a one-to-one function. So you can see the inverse existence there. So that's a short one on relations versus functions versus one-to-one functions. This ties to workbook section 2.1 on the website and the video on relations and functions that is just a little bit longer than this. All right, keep it up.